Right now, we are tracking a mystery involving an American college student unfolding abroad. This student, who is on spring break in Barcelona, is now missing, vanishing from a nightclub in the early hours of the morning along the beach. Police reportedly have a major clue in this case, and there is a new report suggesting that foul play may be involved. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. All right, this story is really starting to pick up steam today, and it is a parent's worst nightmare. Your child goes on spring break, going to visit some friends overseas in a city that is relatively safe, but then you get the call that your child is missing. And that is the nightmare that the family of 20-year-old James Gracey is dealing with right now. He goes by Jimmy. He is a student at the University of Alabama. He is set to graduate next spring. And he's also a native of the Chicago area. Now, Jimmy is overseas in Barcelona, and he went on a personal trip. It's spring break at his college, and he's going to visit some friends, they say, who were studying abroad in Barcelona. Of course, Barcelona is a really popular studying abroad destination for college kids. And there's a new report, as we've been following this story all day as it's been developing. This new report that just came out is very important to talk about, from WIAT TV in Alabama, where the report cites a media outlet and a reporter in Barcelona, and it claims that as police are reviewing surveillance footage right now, they say that foul play is suspected in this case. Now, what that means, the specifics of it, we're still trying to figure that out. WIAT is citing a reporter with the outlet El Periodico in Barcelona, and that outlet says that police in the surveillance footage see Jimmy outside of the club that he was at with some friends, and then the friends went home and he decided to stay a little later. This was around 3 o'clock in the morning. They see him outside the club leaving with someone else. Now, police also have Jimmy's phone. How that phone was found appears to be incredibly important. So this is what we know as we're diving into some of the clues that are coming in right now. Jimmy's mom has been very active, posting on Facebook that her son is missing. She posted this picture of him to a Facebook group. She says, this is a picture of Jimmy the night he went missing. And this is where he was last seen, a Barcelona nightclub called Shoko. When we looked at pics of this place on Instagram, just to paint a picture for you, it is packed with people. I mean, the type of nightclub that has the dance floor where people, hundreds of people, are just shoulder to shoulder inside. And it's the kind of place that goes until the very early hours of the morning, which is pretty typical in Europe. Now, Jimmy was last seen by a friend around 3 o'clock in the morning at this nightclub. And this would have been Tuesday morning Barcelona time. That friend decided to call it a night and head back to the Airbnb where everybody was staying. But Jimmy, they say, decided to stay at this nightclub, Shoko. But Jimmy never reportedly returned to the Airbnb. And when he didn't, that is when the people who knew him reached out, called authorities, and said he was missing and that something was potentially wrong. Now, before we get more into the big clues that law enforcement may have in this case, I do want to show you where Shoko is located on a map in the city, because I also think that this is really important. You can see that it's right along the coast, right along the beach. It is unclear what else cameras are showing right now, whether it was on the beach or on the streets heading inland, that caught Jimmy leaving that club reportedly with someone else. Now, Jimmy's mom writes that Jimmy was wearing a white t-shirt and dark pants, probably joggers, and he was also likely wearing a gold chain with a rhinestone cross. Here's another picture that his mom shared of her son. This was 2 days, she says, before he went missing. Reportedly, members of his family are headed to Barcelona right now to continue to search for him. The friends that he was visiting in Barcelona, they are reportedly out searching for him right now. If you search Jimmy's name on Facebook, you can see there are a lot of Facebook groups that are for American students who are overseas who are sharing his picture and trying to get the word out. But let's talk about some of the big clues that are coming in at this hour, because police in Barcelona, not only did they reportedly have that surveillance footage of him leaving the club, they have his cell phone. And a family spokesperson told Fox News that the phone was found during the arrest of another individual. Now, What does that particularly mean? How was this person taken into custody? We are still trying to figure that out as we speak. But you also then couple that with the report from WIAT TV citing the information coming out of Barcelona that police are looking into the possibility of foul play here. And they continue to review the surveillance footage as we speak, that footage showing Jimmy leaving the club with someone else reportedly. Now, police in Barcelona right now, they have been relatively tight-lipped, at least publicly, to the international media. Catalonia police did release this statement to NBC News. This is what it says, quote, "We are conducting the initial checks and have taken a report in an open investigation. A call was received early yesterday morning around 1 a.m. reporting a possible disappearance. The disappearance was reported to have occurred on March 17th, 2026 at 3 a.m. in the Port Olympic area." Now, again, Jimmy's visiting friends in Spain right now, where they have been studying abroad for the semester. Jimmy stands 6'1" and weighs 175 pounds, according to his mom, who is in Barcelona, as well as his dad right now, as they continue searching for him. And we're going to keep a very close eye on this story. Joining us now to talk about the latest on this case is missing persons private investigator Steve Fisher. Thanks as always for being with us on Law and Crime. We just ran through some of the details that have been breaking on this case as we're recording this now. Like, what stands out to you, as someone who investigates these situations?
Well, the foreign aspect of it complicates things. I mean, I know the family's got to feel so desperate right now. Just in a normal missing persons case, everything gets turned upside down. You have no idea what to do. Now throw in a foreign country where you don't have your own law enforcement, and there could be a language barrier. I feel horrible for them, but it's got to start with the surveillance, and especially over there in Europe and in this part where he was at, it's covered in cameras. So I think they're going to be able to get a beat on pretty quick. I know that there's been some just recent reporting from reporters that they're now suspecting foul play, and
Right.
assume that's based on what they're seeing on the cameras.
Right. And according to this report, so it's kind of like a couple degrees of separation. It's WIAT TV was the one that put it out there. They're out of Alabama. And then they spoke to a reporter who's covering this case in Barcelona, who says it was after 3 o'clock in the morning. They see video of Jimmy Gracey leaving this nightclub with someone. We don't know if it's a girl. We don't know if it's a guy. We don't know what their relationship is. But, he leaves this nightclub, and then they're by looking at that, they're suspecting foul play. It's interesting. His friend who was at the nightclub with him till like 3 a.m. and then leaves him behind. You would think that he would be she would be a pretty key witness in terms of who they were all hanging out with at this nightclub. Because I can't imagine that if your friend just really liked going to nightclubs, like, he's not going to stay by himself. Like, there had to have been people they were talking to inside.
So that's exactly right. And the 3 a.m. thing is not weird at all in Barcelona. In fact, this club doesn't even open till 11 p.m. And I can see why, I've done it. I used to do it. I want to stay behind for a reason. But the only reason you'd want to stay behind is if you'd met somebody there that you're comfortable with, you want to keep hanging out with. So, yeah, there's got to be somebody there that knows his last movements. And I do think that it's going to revolve. The way he got outside probably is because of this phone that went missing and that police now have. I think that's going to be the nexus of this, and whether it was a setup or it's just another event that got him outside because he wanted to find the phone or he thought he knew who had the phone. But there's going to be, I doubt he was just there by himself, and I'll tell you, just taking a quick look online, there's a lot of people that put clips on TikTok from before it even knew it went missing from that night. There's a lot of coverage from inside that, not a ton, but there's coverage from inside that club besides their own surveillance. There's stuff on TikTok right now.
Yeah, and like looking at the nightclub's like Instagram, and it looks shoulder to shoulder packed with people. I mean, clearly Barcelona is one of those like destination spots, especially for people who are on spring break. It's always a busy time of year there, but like, I also get the sense that this nightclub surveillance, it's not just like one fixed camera on the wall, that there's going to be ways that they're going to be able to see who he was with and where they were going throughout the night. When it comes to, because I remember like times that like I never studied abroad, but like I've been to Barcelona, and like you always hear when you go to Europe, they'll like look out for pickpockets, but like you never hear, like this isn't like a place where you think of like, and I'm not saying this happened, but like kidnapping or violent crime. Like it just doesn't seem like that's something that typically happens here. And that's the type of thing that like, someone from out of the country would have to look out for. It seems like this would be, if this does go down the path of foul play, that it's something very uncommon.
And listen, they could be two totally separate events. The phone could have just been pickpocketed, and maybe he didn't even know yet, because they do say, and I know that it went through an Alabama news station, but I'm actually reading from the one in Barcelona. I just translated it, and they're saying, he was outside with an unidentified person. Nobody's talked about seeing a fight outside or anything like that. So it seems like this could be two separate events. Maybe he met somebody and went off somewhere, and it's not even connected to the phone being missing. And maybe something hasn't gone south. Maybe they're on a bender, but they do seem to have reason they're calling it foul play, and maybe that's because even though they say the other person's not identified, maybe they have an idea who that person really is, and keep in mind it's a tourism industry, and they're going to be tight-lipped about anything bad that happened.
Because I'll be honest, when I looked at where Shoko, I think this nightclub's called, like where it was located right along the beach, like the concern at 3 o'clock in the morning is that this is someone who maybe had too much to drink, he's 20 years old, and goes out into the ocean. But it doesn't seem, at least at this point, that that's the direction that this is going. From the family's perspective, and like what a nightmare that they're going through. I know that the mom and the dad reportedly have gone to Barcelona, but like like how do you get over, and not just the language barrier part of it, but like Barcelona and police there have very different rules and probably feel a little bit differently about providing information than what you would get if this was a case playing out in San Diego. Like, how do you handle that? I mean, especially if they hire someone like a private investigator to come in and try and help.
Well, so this happens a lot with foreign cases. Is they especially law enforcement, they feel like, oh well, Americans think that they can get whatever they want, whatever they want, and they're in some way superior law enforcement, or whatever. So they do listen. They're going to take the case. They're going to be very close-lipped. I would, if I was advising the family right now, I'd say lean on the U.S. consulate as much as you can. They do. That's what they're there for. They have those relationships with the high ups, and this is going to go. This is going to go nationwide. This is going to be big news. This case is going to be big news in the next 24 hours, I think. And the officials over in Spain are going to want to get a handle on this. So I think the U.S. consulate is who the family needs to lean on right now for answers. And because it's going to be tough dealing with local level. There's going to be a lot of egos going on, and especially if American law enforcement's trying to get updates and whatnot. And so lean on the consulate's office. That's what they're there for. And man, you just hope for the best. You just hope that he's partying somewhere and has no idea this is going on. As far as the first thing I thought of too, of course, was the water. But you see the picture of him. He doesn't look messed up. He looks like maybe he's had a couple drinks. Doesn't look like he's somebody that's going to go out in the water. And also, that's a really well lit beach there, and it's also kind of like a harbor inlet. So I don't think the water's in play here, but it's why he left is really the key. Did he go to try and find that phone, or did he go with somebody to go continue partying, which at 3 a.m. is not unusual in Barcelona?
No, I mean, like the thing with, I'm not a regular in Europe, but like it typically is one of those places like people go until the very early hours of the morning.
Yep.
It's also a place people, often unplug, from, the internet, and, okay, you would hope best case scenario that it's some sort of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as I do think like 24 hours from now, like I feel like we're looking at a story, if it does head down the line where this report is saying it's going, where they're investigating foul play, like we are going to be talking about this for the next, foreseeable future. How does, like, when you see these cases playing out, especially for a foreign country,
Mm-hmm.
where Barcelona is a place that relies on the tourism industry, they do not want to be seen as a place where foul play happens to American college students who are going over there. Like, how have you seen that impact police in some cases and cities and investigators when you have a case like this that is starting to play out?
Well, I mean, they keep it incredibly quiet. I think we saw this was Dominican Republic around this time last year, and
Yes. Yeah.
right, and so they're going to they have their own way of working cases. But maybe in this case, listen, it seems like they have a reason to believe something bad could happen, because I don't think they would have given a local reporter, if this reporting is accurate, if this local reporter is accurate, I don't think they would have given her a statement that they believe foul play is involved, unless they really believe that this early on in the case, 30 hours after or whatnot. They have to have more, and it does make me wonder if the person they have in custody that they got the phone from is maybe linked to whatever group of people he met, and that person's given statements or something to the effect of what could have possibly happened here. But I also find it curious that they went and searched his Airbnb right away. Now, of course, they would do that to see if anything's there, but I don't think that'd be a top priority. But they actually included that in the statement that they gave to the reporter. So it's all really curious.
It really is. And I think too, like, one other thing I do think about that's like always good context in these stories is like what foul play means in Spain and in Spanish may be different than the way that we interpret it. I mean, certainly foul play, I mean, your mind goes to the worst places, but like, what foul play could possibly be, potential outcomes in this could not be as bad as maybe we would think. Because when you think foul play in the United States, like, your mind immediately goes to the worst case scenario. With that, as far as like the area where they are, and like looking at the map, and you see, yeah, the water, but it seems like this is a pretty popular area in Barcelona. Like, how does that work when it comes to being able to piece together, if he's outside the club with this person and they're outside of Shoko, where they go next? It seems like Barcelona is the type of place where you could follow them down the street and get a pretty good idea of where they're going. But at the same time, I do wonder, since we haven't heard any more about that at the time that we're recording this, whether, what do you read into, I guess, how much information we have and why more hasn't been released?
Yeah, I don't. So what you said is exactly right. Like, one, this area, and two, just being Europe, there's you can get on Google Street View. There's a lot of cameras at the club, all the businesses around the club. There's also it's on like a harbor, and the docks that they have cameras looking at that club. So I think they're going to be able to see him. They're going to be able to track him. And the fact is, it's a really densely populated area, right? So if something violent happened, a fight, something like that, I think we would know by now if something happened in the vicinity. So that's what's really confusing. It's like, seems like he went voluntarily, probably with somebody. And if, like you said, maybe there's a misinterpretation of foul play, because he couldn't be on the streets somewhere. They would have found him by now if he had been beaten or something like that. So, maybe it's hard to say, but there's just a lot of cameras, and if something violent happened, I think it would have been caught, and they would have said something, I think, by now, or at least given the family some information. The family seems like they're passing along to the public what they find out. So I don't know. It seems like he did definitely leave, although they say they only have him outside talking to some unknown person or with an unknown person. He obviously left, and probably with that person, and whether they're able to track that car or they got into a cab or whatever. I would think they'd be able to, just with all the cameras there. It's a densely populated area.
Yeah, and at least be able to identify who this person is that they were with, assuming if they were in that nightclub, and if that person was known to the people in the nightclub. I'm not suggesting that this is a kidnapping situation. We don't know, but I also think, like, when you see international kidnappings, like a 20-year-old college kid just does not seem
No value.
It just doesn't seem like he's the type of target that you typically see in these cases.
No, you'd be going after wealthy. There's wealthy people on yachts in the exact same area. I think that they probably do have an idea who, he was with, because for them to say they suspect foul play so early, I think they have to have an idea who's with, or what he was being lured into, or whatever. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come out that quick with that statement. I don't believe so. Even though, and they're also not even at this point confirming apparently if they actually do have the cell phone or not. Even though the family seems to have information, they definitely do have it from a arrest that happened. And the thing is, how do they, when they arrested this person that had the phone, how they know it was his phone so quickly, assuming it was probably had a screen lock on it. So it makes me wonder if they were following an event on surveillance that led them to whoever had the phone, and they just haven't found the person who's with him at this point.
Right. Like how they found the phone is, I think, a really key part of this at this point. So
Yep.
3 a.m. Tuesday, we're recording this at 2:21 Eastern time on Wednesday. So, and they're ahead of us.
Yeah.
What worries you about that timeline? Just the fact, like, it's now day 2 there, that this has been going on and he hasn't been seen.
So, in that first 12 to 18 hours, you can be like, okay, he lost his phone, probably doesn't know where the Airbnb is, probably doesn't have access to the Airbnb, doesn't know how to contact his friends, sleeps it off somewhere. Once more than 24 hours passes, that's kind of off the table. Like, I doubt he's in a motel somewhere for more than 24 hours without waking up and just trying to find his way back. Probably would have asked a law enforcement officer or something by now. So once that kind of like sleeping it off time period passes, it becomes a lot more critical. And then coupled with the news we got just a few minutes before we started discussing this, of they're suspecting foul play. I think they know a lot more, and I think we'll probably know a lot more, or the family will, in the next 8 or 12 hours. But it's, I just, like you said, there's really no value, so I don't see it being a kidnapping, and I don't know how something could turn so violent, like over a phone or how it didn't spill over to right outside where people would witness something going on. Like, why would they leave the area? So it makes me wonder if he was lured or went somewhere, maybe to party some more, and it was just the wrong group, or and it wasn't really a targeted thing. It just was something just went south in the connection.
Right. And I think as far as this investigation is concerned, at least we're talking about, where he is. It's an international city that has, to your point, a lot of cameras. This is a place where a lot of people have cell phones. He's not in some remote foreign country where it can be really difficult to get an eye on somebody when they leave. I mean, it seems like he was in a place that was very well watched. And we'll see what happens next. I mean, I really do think if this does end up being a foul play situation, you hope it is not. You hope that he's able to come home safely, but I think this story is going to get a lot of attention just right now, day 2. But I bet by the time tomorrow when people wake up, if there are not a lot of developments about where he went, I think there's going to be a lot of attention on this story. Missing person private investigator Steve Fisher, always great to have you on Law and Crime as we're trying to learn more about this case, and Jimmy Gracey.
Thanks for having me, and my thoughts are with his family and his friends, and hope for the best.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we're also now streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.